All right, so here we're looking at compound measures, particularly speed, distance, and time. Now, compound measures are any measurement which has a unit made up of two other units. What I mean is when you're in your car and you're driving, your speed is in miles per hour. If you're measuring the distance of something, maybe in physics, the speed unit that you would use is probably meters per second. And no matter what unit you use for speed, miles per hour or meters per second, you've always got a distance and a time. Distance and a time, which gives us a clue about how we calculate speed, but that's what makes it a compound measure. So the way that we calculate speed, the way that we do speed, distance, time questions usually involves a triangle like this, with speed, distance, and time in it. Now the way this triangle works is you cover up the thing that you're looking for, and what's left in the triangle tells you how to calculate it. So for example, if I cover up speed, then I'm left with distance and time, and what that tells you is that speed equals distance, which is the one on top, divided by time, which is the one on the bottom. If I instead cover up distance, then you're left with speed time, speed next to time, and there is a little times in here. So we calculate distance by doing speed times time, speed multiplied by time. And finally, if I had covered up time, if I had covered up time, then we're left with distance divided by speed. So the last one is that time is distance divided by speed. Right, so let's see what that looks like in a question. If I tell you two of those pieces of information, distance, speed, or time, we can work out the last one. So if I tell you that a bird flies 300 meters, that's the distance. It flies 300 meters at a speed of 20 meters per second. I would like to know the time it took. So time, question mark? So a bird flies 300 meters at a speed of 20 meters per second, and I want to work out the time. Well, if we go back to our triangle, if I cover up time with your thumb or something, just cover up time, you're left with distance divided by speed, which we did right out over here. Time is distance divided by speed. So to work out the time that it took, we take the distance, which was 300 meters, and divide it by the speed, which was 20 meters a second. And you could put that in a calculator, but that should come to 15. But 15 what? Is it 15 hours, 15 minutes, 15 seconds? Well, if we look at the units that we used to do this calculation, we had meters and meters per second. So the unit of time is already kind of given to us in the question. The unit of time is going to have to be seconds. So a bird flies 300 meters at a speed of 20 meters per second. It took 15 seconds. Now that's how we worked out time, but it could have given us that information in a different order and asked us to work out something else. For example, if it had said instead a bird flies 300 meters in 15 seconds, it could have asked us for its speed. Speed, question mark? Well, if we go back, speed, if we cover up speed in a triangle, we're left with distance divided by time. So we take the distance, which is 300 meters, and divide it by the time it took. And 300 meters divided by 15 is 20. So our answer from before kind of checks out. It's 20 meters a second, which we did already know because it was in the question. But that's how you work out speed, distance, and time. Cover up the thing you're looking for, and what's left in that triangle tells you how to calculate it. Now I'm running out of space for any more examples, so instead what I'm going to do is put two questions up there. So if you want, you can pause the video and have a go at them. But before I give you a break to pause it if you want to, I'm just going to point out that second question about Kelly, you have to do something else in it first. I put that question on purpose because we've got two different units of time. It says that Kelly drives at 80 kilometers per hour for 90 minutes. So the first thing we're going to have to do is convert them to the same unit of time. So we're going to have to convert 90 minutes into hours first. So that's a bit of advice for if you do want to have a go at these, but I'll just give you a pause for a second in case you want to pause it and have a go at these. Okay, and I'm going to talk them through. So the first one, I roll a ball which travels 12 meters in 3 seconds. What is its speed? Well, if we go back to our triangle, speed equals distance divided by time. So I just have to take the distance it traveled So speed equals the distance travelled divided by the time it took. So speed is 4. But again, what are the units? Well, like we saw earlier, oh no, I don't want to go back. Like we saw earlier, the units of speed are always made up of, if it's miles per hour, you've got a distance, miles, and a time, hours. The distance we're using in this question is meters, and the time we're using is seconds. So the speed is 4 meters per second. And if you think about what that means, 4 meters per second. So every second you go 4 meters. So in 3 seconds, you go 3 times as far, which is 12. So it does kind of check out. The second question is the one I said was a bit more complicated. If Kelly drives at 80 kilometers per hour for 90 minutes, how far does she travel? What I need to do to work out how far she travels, which is distance, what I need to do is speed times time. However, like I warned you earlier, 90 minutes, I can't answer this question correctly if I leave that as 90. What I'm going to have to do is convert that 90 into hours. Well, I know it's 1 hour something, because 1 hour is only 60 minutes. And because we've got 90 minutes instead of 60, that's 30 minutes over an hour. So 90 minutes is the same as 1 hour and 30 minutes. And actually 30 minutes is half an hour. So how many hours is 90 minutes? It's actually 1.5, not 1.3, it's 1.5 hours because it's 1.5 hours, an hour and a half. And now I've got what 90 minutes is in hours. I can do speed times time. I can take my 80 kilometers per hour, which is the speed, multiply it by how many hours I was traveling for, and 80 times 1.5 is 120. But again, 120 what? 120 meters, miles? Well, the unit of distance that I have in my question is kilometers. So it's going to have to be 120 kilometers. And a bit like earlier in this other question we did over on the left, we can kind of do a sense check of our answer. If you're traveling at 80 kilometers per hour, which literally means 80 kilometers in an hour, that's the speed at which you're traveling. If you're traveling at 80 kilometers an hour for an hour and a half, then you're going to go 80 kilometers in the first hour, and then half as far in the extra half an hour. Half of 80 is 40, so that's how far you go in the last 30 minutes, and 80 plus 40 is 120. Don't worry too much if that sort of rough way of checking is a bit complicated, because it is just a check, and if you've done your working out right, then the check doesn't give you anything extra. It's just a little way of making sure your answer makes sense. Anyway, so this speed distance time triangle is quite important to remember for speed distance time questions. You don't have to remember each of these individual equations because they all just come from that triangle. So if you can remember the triangle, cover up the thing you're looking for, and what's left tells you how to work out the thing you covered up. I hope that helps.